Today's video is brought to you by Squarespace. Let's talk about that project you've been holding off on for far too long. You know the one, that comprehensive gallery of pizza-themed underwear. Or maybe you're trying to sell some pizza-themed underwear and you need an online storefront. Or perhaps you need to put a menu online for your local restaurant which sells underwear-themed pizza. What am I talking about? Okay, maybe your ambitions aren't quite that weird, or maybe they are. Either way, this is where our friends at Squarespace come in. I've personally always been intimidated at the idea of getting my own domain and my own little slice of the internet, but it took me just a handful of minutes to get down the basics once I checked out Squarespace myself. It really is that easy. They walk you through everything. And after that, it was just super fun customizing everything to my heart's content. Heck, if you already have a domain name, you could just transfer it over with their easy-to-use tools and do whatever you want with it. And if you're wanting to take whatever project you're working on seriously, the tools to track your growth, put together your own ad campaigns, integrate with social media platforms, everything you need to be a functioning business is right here and just as easy to understand. It's very little effort to get something clean and professional up in front of the world. Trust me, nothing feels quite as cool as having your own domain on a business card. And to make it even easier, if you head over to squarespace.com/gameapologist, you will get 10% off your first purchase. Thank you again to Squarespace for supporting the channel, and let's get back to it. Welcome back to Sonic Speed Clonoa speed reading. Sure, why not? I'm gonna vomit. I've been a fan of this franchise for the last 25 years, and I'm so happy to see people talking about him again. And I'm especially happy seeing my YouTube friends giving the series the attention it deserves. But strangely, I have yet to see anybody talk about the surprising amount of comics that have been produced for these games, which is strange. Because if you're familiar with Klonoa, then you know that these characters and worlds are just dying for proper adaptations in other media. They could serve as a brilliant way to deep dive into lore and backstories. But despite having 3 different series of mangas, that never actually happens. It seems like the primary focus of these things is comedy. Well, there is a webcomic that does do a few new things here, but I promise you that's worth its own separate video. Today, I just wanted to focus on the mangas, and I'll be honest, when I was going into this project, I assumed there wasn't going to be a lot here to pick apart, but it turns out there might be a little more here than what I initially expected. Now, for those unfamiliar, a manga is just a Japanese version of a comic book, and instead of reading from left to right, you read from right to left. That's not going to be the case for one of the books we look at today, but when you see the camera start panning from right to left, that's why. I know that's Weeb 101 stuff, but I'm just giving the heads up to the random few of you who might be confused while watching this video. None of these stories were released in the West, so we're relying heavily on fan scans and translations. And I'm going to tell you right now, some of them look a little choppy. And of course, languages being what they are, some of the jokes might fall a little flat when localized. All the same, I want to give a massive shout out to PowerStone05 for doing a ton of legwork getting this stuff translated and online so the Western fans could get a chance to experience these books for ourselves. We are Klonoa fans, so we're desperate for anything. I think there might even be alternative translations out there. He even has kanji guides with all this stuff. So yeah, while things might get blurry around the spines, and yes, they're translating and slapping on Comic Sans, while it might not be perfect, without Power Stone, we probably would not have any of this stuff. So wherever you are, buddy, thank you so much for your assistance in preserving this stuff. All that said, I'm not entirely sure if it's okay to share links. Obviously, nobody's making money off of these old books, but all the same, I'm not going to be linking anything just to be on the safe side. You've got the internet, you've got search engines, you have the words Klonoa manga and PowerStone 05. You can handle it from there. Okay, let's get started. And we're going to be doing things out of order. I want to get the shortest and most straightforward of the bunch out of the way. Kaze no Klonoa Door to Phantomile by Tamori Hataru. And while I just got done thanking Power Stone for all of their effort, I don't think they translated this book. But anyway, this is just an adaptation of the first vision of the Wii remake of the game, which this was made to promote, as it features the Wii design of Klonoa. I'll be honest, he looks a little weird with the lankier limbs, but outside of that, the art art is absolutely fantastic. This is worth reading just for the expressions alone. These short little promotional tie-in stories were nothing new, even back in 2008. These can almost act like a beginner's strategy guide, showing off the mechanics of the game or putting the character in specific scenarios that the player will encounter themselves, even showing you how to overcome certain obstacles. And that's exactly the case here. Even the cutscenes that open and close the vision in the game are here just truncated a little bit. This comic was made simply to sell the game. So if you're super familiar with the source material, there's not much here for you to take away from this, but I would still recommend you check it out all the same, as it does offer a look at all of this from Klonoa's perspective, and he is a lot of fun here. He's an adventurous kid who can be a little dense, discovering the power of the wind bullet, coming across moves for the first time, and it shows that he can struggle with puzzles just as much as a player can. He gets frustrated at one of the first obstacles in the game and accidentally comes across a solution by throwing a tantrum. And all of this leads to a confrontation with Gaudius and Joka on top of Bell Hill, as you'd expect. And here we see the same courage that he shows in the game, but seeing the imposing figure of Gaudius and the size of Rongo Lango from Klonoa's perspective gives us an idea of how daunting all of these trials must have actually been for him. He really and truly is in over his head. And even when he understands what's truly at stake, the story ends with him enthusiastic for the adventure ahead. Short as it is, in my opinion, the art of this story is the best of all the books. And as little time as we get with Klonoa here, I'd be satisfied with what was provided in this short story. But we do have other mangas to look at. So let's carry on and look at something that's a little more out there. The second book we're looking at today is translated roughly to Klonoa of the Wind 4-cell manga theater. At least that's according to the fan wiki. Power Stone lists this as Manga Kingdom. Either way, that 4-cell is referring to the 4-panel layout of most of this book, like the funnies you'd find in a newspaper. These are just short comic strips here to tell a quick joke and move on. Not every single story is set up in this fashion, but most of them are, and split up between different artists with a wide variety of styles. I really love this creepy Deadeye design for Klonoa. Looks like something made by Nekojiro. But the thing is, you need to have played Klonoa to get a lot of the humor here, as they directly reference instances and mechanics which make zero sense with no context. And with that said, also beware of spoilers for this section of the video, as again, this thing directly references story events, a couple of which I do need to talk about. Now, if you have played Klonoa, these jokes will make sense. Whether you find them funny or not, who can say? But a lot of these jokes sound like the observational humor you'd find from a YouTuber. For instance, Klonoa himself asks why Hupo's ring is so big. There's no way that fit on a finger. So Hupo, being the friend that he is, pulls out a mallet and smashes Klonoa's hand so it'll swell up and be a better fit for the ring. That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. If you played the game and you found a point where you could make a dumb joke, they make that dumb joke in this book. They also make light of the frustrating final puzzle room with Klonoa getting stuck while Gaudius loses his patience waiting for him to arrive. And speaking of Gaudius, they also poke fun at his weird headdress looking like a pickaxe. Joka makes a wish on a shooting star he sees in Gaudius's galaxy cloak, and the dude secretly loves romance novels. I say secretly, but it turns out that Laphise can see it since she's stuck in that cloak of his. We also see Forlock's granny wondering why the hell her house is built with so many convoluted puzzles, and they even make light of pivotal story beats, like Hupo's human form with Klonoa laughing at his onesie. We all thought we were so clever making jokes about that design, but it turns out Klonoa beat us all to it. One of the strips takes place right after Joka destroys Grandpa's house and steals the moon pendant, and we get to see the Palladium boss fight from Grandpa's perspective, wondering why the hell Klonoa is playing on a swing while he lays there dying. And one of the other artists takes that scene and instead of sucking up the moon pendant as Joka does in the game, he accidentally has the thing in reverse and he ends up dumping a bunch of crap onto the wreckage of the house. Another strip takes place at the end of the Joka boss fight, with Joka giving his final thoughts, lamenting on how he failed and how badly he was disgraced. Klonoa's just standing there saying like, yeah man, you're pretty unpopular, then just leaves before Joka finishes his last words. Klonoa really just told that clown, big oof. Oh my god, they actually translated oof on the same page. I didn't mean to do that. They even go so far as to poke fun at the Song of Rebirth, showing it bringing the flowers back to life like it did in the end of the game. But interestingly, it also brings Klonoa's grandfather back to life. And the last panel shows Gaudius being resurrected, scaring the shit out of Laphise. Still, that does make me wonder if the Song of Rebirth could reverse the death of Gramps. I've never thought about it like that. It kind of recontextualizes what has changed at the end of the game. And I love that they go out of their way to show off elements that you might have just thought about while you were running past it in the game, like the giant fish skeleton from the Wind Ruins. One of the strips brings it back to life so it can fight alongside the Laphiste statue to engage in a kaiju battle with Nahatum. And they even hint at Klonoa and Hyupo potentially meeting again in the future as they show the two of them as Klonoa is about to depart. Truth be told, I don't know if there was a joke lost in translation there or if they were genuinely hinting at something down the line. I don't know, but there was a surprising amount for me to pick apart in this silly book. Even little things like tiny bits of lore here and there, such as the Dreamstones forming from literal dreams, with Klonoa and Hyupo actually able to see said dreams if they look into the gems, or how the giant moos form from absorbing said Dreamstones. And the moos in general were actually just common critters until Ghadius turned them evil, but as it turns out, whether they're good or evil, they're still the same mindless, emotional idiots. Don't know if it was part of the lore or if they just set that up as a joke. Either way, it works for me. But I gotta tell you, it was kind of fun seeing all the different ways that these creatives could tell jokes about the same thing. And as far as the lore goes, I don't know if they've talked about this stuff before in manuals and I've just missed it, but just for instance, the giant moos I mentioned earlier, multiple creators do indeed say that they grow to that large size because they absorb Dreamstones. So I do think they are explaining a little bit of lore here, and that's probably helped along because this book was also helped by the development staff of the original game. This is a companion piece made specifically for people who've played the game. I've grown up with comics about video game characters written by people who could not care less about the actual video games those mascots originated from. And yeah, as specific as the humor or scenarios can be here, I find it genuinely refreshing to see this. And it's not all just jokes. There's this charming little 2-page story with Klonoa asking Hyupo how Phantom Isle runs on dreams even though Klonoa can't physically see the dreams. And Hyupo responds with a comparison with the wind. Even though you can't see it, it still powers windmills. And the two of them continue on with their short conversation about dreams and their importance. These 2 pages tied 2 huge elements of the game together in this one conversation. I absolutely love that. I could go on and on with examples here, but this really doesn't work without the context of the game. But if you are a fan of the game, then I highly recommend that you track this down for yourself. It's incredibly charming, creative, and it left me with a lot of new perspectives on this game I've cherished for a quarter century. I wasn't expecting it, but this is my favorite of the bunch we're looking at today. I'm going to do a lot more research on this book specifically, especially if I'm going to be jumping into Klonoa lore, because there is a surprising amount here. So with all of that said, let's carry on. We started off this video with a manga that incentivized you to try out the game. Then we looked at a manga that you should check out only after you've played the game. And now we move on to one that requires absolutely no connection to the game or really any of the series. This is Shippu Tengoku Kaze no Klonoa. And while this uses characters found throughout the games, if you're not familiar with them, you have nothing to worry about. Not only is this an entirely separate canon, the characters act nothing like their game counterparts. Klonoa is a complete jackass, desperate to be seen as a hero, but usually ending up leaving other characters and locations in far worse shape than how he found them. The first story sees him trying to track down a stolen mailbox, but somehow manages to destroy an entire castle and then accidentally inflate a mailbox. And since tampering with mailboxes is a federal offense, that makes him a criminal. And if that was too mild for you, another story starts off as an adaptation of the beach volleyball game, but ends up with Klonoa and his pals drifting through space. Explaining how they get from point A to point B won't help you, I promise. And to help balance the pure insanity of Klonoa, he has his trusty sidekick, Moo. Yeah, they don't use either of the established sidekicks from the games, but instead use a frustrated Moo, who is also a mailman, I suppose. But Hyupo does show up for a quick second in the volleyball chapter, and Lolo is also here occasionally with absolutely no personality. Popka also pops by, but he has no idea who any of them are if you needed it further hammered in that none of these stories are canon to the games. They even have Garland from the GBA games as something of a friendly antagonist here. He doesn't actually do anything evil, and in fact he teams up with the main cast a lot of the time. I think he's just one of Klonoa's friends in this story. And if you've ever come across this infamous piece of a realistic ugly Klonoa, it started in this series, and it led to this point after all of Klonoa's friends were trying to figure out what he kept under his hat. It's an afro, in case you were wondering. The plots really are an afterthought. It is just one insane scenario after the next, and they somehow spread these nonsense stories out for multiple pages. These are not short chapters. They do attempt some sort of cohesive plot in the second volume of stories occasionally, as the mage from Klonoa 2 sends Popka out to find a hero bearing a certain symbol. That hero obviously is Klonoa, but they never check his ass, which is where the symbol is, so they completely missed that point. But then they drop that particular idea and replace it with a whistle, with the sage saying that the chosen one will dance if that whistle is blown in their presence. So when Popka blows it and he sees that Klonoa is dancing in this getup, he never bothers to tell Clonoa that he is the chosen hero, as this version of Klonoa is a dangerous idiot. So instead of spilling the beans, this band of lunatics goes running around all over creation in search of the one, not realizing that he's actually with them the whole time. And then they end up facing down the evil one, Nahatum, who begins crying because he hasn't been able to take a bath in 10 days. One thing leads to another, and eventually they let off a missile that's made to home in on the chosen one. So of course it homes in on Klonoa and blows up the entire group. And at that point, Mu realizes that the chosen one is indeed Klonoa, but Garland just doesn't care anymore. Then they end up in the hot springs, where I guess the prophecy said the hero would be found or something. I don't know. I thought they're going to be building up a larger narrative, but nope, it's done in 2 chapters. After that, they go back to a single episode of insane nonsense, with Klonoa and Gunz competing for a bounty on a Daigon who's stolen a bunch of goods. Since neither of our heroes can swim, they sign up for swimming lessons, and Leorina is here as the swimming instructor. Sure, why not? Stylish pilot gear can double as a swimsuit, who cares? Anyway, stupid crap happens and Klonoa ends up drinking all of the water in the pool. They get kicked out, steal Garland's mech suit to chase after the fish. They end up fighting over that, and this all culminates in Klonoa blowing up the stolen goods with his wind bullet, which leads him and Gunz with a bounty on their heads. No amount of explaining is going to make sense out of this, guys. It's 2 volumes of pure insanity. This doesn't match any of the games. Well, I suppose the very closest it comes in terms of that would be Klonoa Beach Volleyball.
Here we go! Woohoo!
As I said earlier, they almost attempted an adaptation. They even matched the ridiculous designs from the game. I always thought a Klonoa volleyball game was really weird, so maybe a volleyball tournament makes sense in this canon. I don't know. But they don't just reference the volleyball game, they also make reference to some elements of Klonoa heroes. I'll be honest, I still haven't played through that myself, but they do feature Pongo from that game. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. Pango? Whatever the case is, he really hates being called a turtle, which makes no sense to me as turtles are the best thing ever, but whatever. After that, they introduce the hero medals, which become shinier with the more heroic deeds you do. So Klonoa's, of course, turns black, and he gets so down on himself for being a failure of a hero that he ties a boulder to his waist and attempts to drown himself in a lake. He spends the rest of that chapter super down on himself and accidentally stops an escaped convict in his delusional depression. And at the end of that chapter, he decides that if he can't be a hero, he'll instead be a heroine, and gets in a Sailor Moon style dress and braids his floppy ears and yeah, that's the most I'm going to comment on that. After that, there are giant mechs of the main cast, and they end up running right by the Sphinx and pyramids. Sure. And near the end of the book, Lolo confesses her love for Klonoa, if anybody cared. They end the entire thing with Klonoa smiling, giving the peace sign, and saying that he's in deep shit again. That could be a localizing liberty taken by Power Stone. I have no idea, but it seems to fit with the tone of this insane book. This is bonkers bananas. These chapters are entirely too long for the paper-thin plots. They hop from scenario to scenario, and things just go from bad to worse. I don't know how they managed to get 2 volumes from this stuff. But hey, if you look over at Mario and Sonic, they were pulling this kind of crap with their own comedy mangas. And I'm sure there are plenty more mangas that I'm just not thinking about. This is just new for me and a hilarious piece of Klonoa I've never been able to experience before this. I will say, as ludicrous as this book is, there is a potential argument for this insane story to be quasi-canon, thanks to something that was established in the webcomic that came out many years after these books. But we'll have to look into that another time because there's a lot to pick apart there. Apologies if this video seemed to be a little all over the place, but that's because these books themselves are as well. A large portion of what we covered relies on comedy, and explaining every single joke will just kind of kill the fun of it. So all I'll say is, if any of this sounded interesting to you, then go track it down. It's not that hard to find. And there's a surprising amount to read. The Wii adaptation was exactly what I expected it to be, but these other two, while I knew they'd be focusing on humor, they went in directions I was not expecting, and they gave me a lot to pick apart. Sure, some of the humor falls flat even without the excuse of localization. One is so completely insane and so out there that it has nothing to do with the source material and doesn't even attempt to replicate the actual personalities of these beloved characters. So yeah, if you're going into any of these expecting them to expand on the lore or take on a more serious tone, you're not gonna find it here. But I'll tell you guys, I was expecting to spend a half hour to an hour just quickly scrolling through this stuff and not really having anything to talk about, but I was pleasantly surprised. I ended up spending an entire afternoon reading through all of this. There are only a couple of volumes, but they are thick volumes. And as different as some of these interpretations might be, I'm always happy to spend a little more time with these characters. But with all of that said, there is still a webcomic that does take itself far more seriously than any of these books. So if you'd like to see me jump into that, please let me know. I'm always looking for an excuse to talk about Klonoa. But for now, that's gonna do it for today, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. If you haven't already, I also have put together a Klonoa video, and I'm gonna be putting together a few more as well. So if you're not already subscribed and you're a big fan of Klonoa, be sure you stick around. I do occasionally talk about more things than just Sonic. And hey, let me give an extra special thank you to all the patrons who support me, especially these fine folks here: Kyle Winter, Cyrus the Skeptic, Joseph Duncan Sonic 2 Blue, John, Josh Strider, Klonoa Monroe, Faizan Razul, Trey Nobles, Hatsworth, Ginger Bob, Jack of All Spades, Tristan Trapp, Meekers, Dun Dun, Miles the Prower, Jeremy Singer, Mr. Boo J, World's Greatest Bard, Rain, Sam Webster, Dwight Graham, Fish Flop, Lucas Lipker, The Bad Pal, Shoden, Mr. SP, Cecil the Gallade, The Dark Neon, Missing No, Stefan Plakanica, Remonic, Ty Cyan, Graham J. Hall, ChangeName.exe, Wayne is Boss, Lederick, David 20 Cove, Ryan Rolfs, The Lumberjack, Hello, my name is Widow Nikki Uwu. Do you want to hear my scary dinosaur impression? Wow, hi, Mr. Boo J. I hate you, Otis. NBTV, Mute, Trash Baphomet, Autumn from Twitter.com, SSG Infinite Sonic, That Pyromane, Mui Saxy, Jinsei Otame, Triplets Born, The Throne Awaits, Loka Brenna, Nezend, Enerjack 5, Grayson Conager, Sherrod the Hedgehog, H.R. Hoffman, Spades the Nocturne, Ken K, Then 101, Paxton Bisbee, Sindarin 7, Stevie Cole, 3 Rule 4, Twilord, Asir Warns of a Deadly Fate, Paisley, Eric Delgado, Cody Gracius, Tristan Teen the Great, Kodinsky, Jamo Art, PK Durbar, again, I don't know if I'm saying that right, Crimson Rose, and Sonic PAJ. Guys, once again, thank you so much for your support. I've been going wild with these videos, trying to get them out as quickly as possible, and I want to give a shout out to my friend Channel Pup, who has been so gracious as to help me with the editing. That's always the longest part of video creation for me, and he is just a beast, and he's much better at it than I am. And he's a very talented creator himself, so if you've not yet checked out his channel, be sure you do. All right, with all of that said, I'll see you next time. Toot toot, Dream Warriors.